And it is time, just like Javon said, for HRS Late Nights. I am Tony Cutillo. And I am telling you right now, you talk about when a show flips a script, right? You talk about when a show flips the script. I literally had this scheduled earlier, had to redo the thumbnail. I literally took Jalen Hurts out and put Joel Embiid in because if you haven't seen it, that's right. Joel Embiid breaks the record. He dropped 70. He dropped 70 tonight in an unbelievable, historic performance that I need to ask, is this the best performance ever? And I asked that from a 76ers perspective. I want to know because I say this all the time. I'm an AI guy. I love Allen Iverson. You know, I, I remember, I remember him dropping the 50 pluses in game sevens against Toronto. I remember dropping a 50, against Milwaukee, right? Like you remember these huge games. And AI, I've always said this. And again, this is HRS Late Nights. I am Tony Cutillo. Make sure you get involved, subscribe, like, comment. Phone lines are open. You see the link. And like I tell everybody before, all you need to do is click on it. I'm not saying you need to call in, but if you want to call in, you want to have a conversation, and you want to talk about a point, man, you just click it on your phone, man. That's it. You don't need no video. You don't need any of that, man. It's like calling up to the radio. But guess what? You have no wait time. You have no wait time, and you could talk about what you want. You can talk about what you want. And the man of the hour tonight is Joel Embiid. Is Joel Embiid. And my man Joe checking in says Willie Burton 50 against Miami. He's always throwing one of those slums in there, one of those those quick hitters, right? One of those one-hit wonders. Yeah, man. Listen, but in all honesty, though, I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know if he gets this, right? I don't know if he gets this if Nick Nurse isn't the coach. Full transparency. I don't know if he gets this if Nick Nurse is not the coach. I don't. I don't think he gets it. I don't even know if he comes back in at 6:59. Right? Remember that. He came back in at the 6:59 mark. He might not even get back in the game. Nick Nurse knew. Nick Nurse was very in tune of what was going on. And I'll tell you what, he was just unstoppable. He's the most dominant player right now in the NBA. He's the most unguardable. I mean, my man Sean Barnett, again, he's been on this show. He was tweeting out the whole time. Michael KB, real Michael KB, was tweeting out the whole time. Talk about the most unguardable player in the NFL, in the NBA. And he really is. He really is. And here's the thing. How lucky are we? Like, the way I talk about this stuff all the time. How lucky are we to when we literally got to watch one of the most unguardable people of all time in AI, and then the other most unguardable person in Joel Embiid? Like, we are on another level. My man David Roska says, wants to know what's my favorite Allen Iverson moment. Give me a little bit, man. I'll get to that. I will, because listen, I'm an AI fan. I'm huge. If I was on video right now, you would see my retired jersey behind me in a frame. Okay, but I need to give this to Joe. This is Joe's moment right now. This is Joe's moment, and he deserves it. He absolutely deserves it. My man Joe says, finally a coach that gets Embiid to do what we've all said. The MVP has gotten even better under Nurse. And that's 100% accurate right there. 100% accurate. I said this again, and I'll continue to say it. We finally got a coach. Not only did we get a coach that runs a system that made Tobias Harris play like the Tobias Harris we thought we were getting, but you literally have made the MVP better. You made the MVP even better just by implementing your offensive system, just by getting into his head and saying, listen, we can't have you just shooting threes all the time and staying up at the top of the key. We're going to employ an offense where the balls continually move around, even though you're going to be the focal point. And that's what's happened. And here's the greatest thing. What's crazy is he's done something that nobody else has ever been able to do with Joe. He's given him this time management within the game. He's given time management within the game. Think about it. He's scoring at will so quickly that he is able to rest for the last quarter of these games when they're out of hand. And that's the crazy part about it. He's getting more out of Joel Embiid in 3 quarters than Doc Rivers could get out in 4. He's getting more. And I'll tell you what, I want to know everybody's, as we're going with this show, I have 2 questions to ask. Okay. One is a Sixers question. One is the Eagles question. And listen, I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear your opinions. Okay. Let's stick to the Sixers one right now. The Sixers question is because I'm feeling different now. I'm feeling in some kind of way. Okay. No, I'm not talking about Shania Twain feel like a woman. I'm feeling in some kind of way, okay, where I was looking at this team and saying they absolutely have to make a move. I'm going to be honest with you. I have not seen a player dominate a game like this since Michael Jordan. And I know I am going to get roasted for that. And I know people are going to be like, what? Relax. That's what they're going to say, right? They're all going to say, relax. But what I'm going to say is give me another player who was completely unguardable. Like on a consistent basis. That technically didn't have that 1B. Right? Listen, I love Scottie Pippen. But Scottie Pippen wasn't Michael Jordan. Right? Scottie Pippen wasn't Michael Jordan. So that's what I'm talking about. I look at this and I say, Joel Embiid is literally taking this entire team on his back. And they put so many good pieces. And here's the thing, when you think about Michael Jordan, and again, I get it. Joel's on a guard. Joel's a center. He's a big guy. I've been on that train, man. I've been on that train. But the thing about Michael's teams, where he always had those legitimately, like the veteran pieces that always had that role, that's all he needed was the role. They only need to fill that role. And it was get the ball to Michael, get the ball to Michael, get the ball to Michael. But if Michael has those opportunities, get the ball to Kerr, get the ball to Paxson, get it to Cliff Livingston, get it to Rodman down low for the rebound, get it to Hodges out on the wing, right? Get it to Kukoc, get so many different players, get it to Longley, get it to Wennington, get it to Cartwright. Listen, those Bulls are my teams, man. I could probably name you every single person on that team. Get it to Trent Tucker, right? All those guys that were, get it to Scotty Williams. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Like, I have not seen this since Michael Jordan. And that's the crazy part. That's the crazy part for me. And now that I'm seeing it and I'm witnessing it, I'm saying to myself, you know what? Don't give up those assets, man. Don't make that deal. I don't need a Zach LaVine. I don't. I think this team is cooking right now. This team is cooking right now. And I think they have enough. I've seen enough. Not to get like a double idiom there, but I've seen enough. I think if these players continually fill these roles and these voids that they have, and Joe is exactly right here when he says he doesn't have to take them on his back. Maxey can take over if Joe gets cold. I wouldn't underestimate Maxey. And another player who's grown to a different level. Now, I will say this, if they want to make a move and they want to take the ball out of Maxey's hands, the primary ball handler, and they want to get a guy in here that's going to be a ball handler, I'm all for it. I'm good as long as he doesn't overshadow these guys. As long as he doesn't overshadow these guys, I am all in for it. 100%. 100%. And that's what I'm saying, man. Sorry, a little technical difficulties there for a second. But the ball movement, Joe says, has been better this year than the last 20 years. It's going to be a fun ride. And that's the thing. Nurse has got this in these guys' heads that the ball movement and the offense is running so smooth that not only is it fun, but it's fun for everybody. You have guys like Ricky Council coming up. You got guys like Turk coming up, and they just fitting right in. Even if it's in garbage time, they're not scared. They're fitting right in, man. That is a huge deal. That means and I'll say this, man. I'm going to say this, and I continue to say it. What's really cool about this is I know for a fact. Okay, I know for a fact. I got to give myself a plug here. I know for a fact by doing the work with the Blue Coats and for the Blue Coats beat, which we will be recording on Thursday for our 3rd episode. And we'll be getting the Sharif Abdul-Rahim interview out tomorrow. And from being down there and from doing the work with them and seeing Nick Nurse at the games, Nick Nurse at the games and not acting like a celebrity. Nah, Nick Nurse is, just chilling, saying hi, watch the game, but sitting there and collaborating with coaches. Sitting there and devising and talking about the game plan that he's employing up at the NBA level, that he's saying, listen, what are you guys doing down here? So we can kind of mix some of that in. So these guys, when they do come up and they do play, they're already comfortable. I'll tell you what, man, I did not underestimate Nick Nurse, but I will say this. I didn't think he was this good. Honestly, I did not think he was this good. And maybe you want to say I did underestimate him. I don't know, but I did not think he was this good. I mean, I knew he knew how to get the best out of his players. And I know when he was with Toronto, I did say this, and I'm on record as saying this, I always knew he had the formula for slowing down Joel Embiid. Always had it. What better way to make Joel even better by getting the guy that knows how to at least slow him down? Not stop him, but slow him down. Now you have the guy on your team coaching you. That's the crazy part. Javon says, Nurse has made Embiid an all-around offensive player, which is scary. Dropping 30-10 nightly and dishing out 5 to 6 assists. I can't remember the exact stat, and you guys know it because, Kate Scott mentioned it, and Joel couldn't believe it. But since 1990, the last player to score, I think it was 50 and get like 15 assists or something like that, was Michael Jordan in 1990. I mean, that's the kind of territory that we're talking about. Like I said, that Joel Embiid is in. And those whole times when under Phil Jackson, under Phil Collins, they always, whether it be trade deadline or free agency, they never brought in big stars. I mean, listen, I thought it was it was a big deal. I shouldn't say little. It was a big deal when they brought in Dennis Rodman. And just because of the baggage that he had, and just because, would he kind of fall in line with the rest of the team? But when you look at it from the outskirts and you say, you have Maxey, you have Tobias, you technically, it's crazy, and I know everybody doesn't like to compare, but you technically on this team, Joe technically has more than Jordan had. I said Phil Collins. Goddamn, Doug Collins. Man, I must have been listening to some Genesis or something, Joe. A little invisible touch. You didn't know I was a Genesis fan, man. And I was a Genesis fan, man. Little in too deep, little invisible touch, right? Little studio. But yeah, definitely not Phil Collins, Doug Collins. Obviously the former Sixer coach, the former Bulls coach. Yeah, exactly. Studio. But I think he's got more than Jordan. And that's what's crazy about it. That's what's absolutely crazy. Javon says the team is a perfect mix of talent, youth, depth, and vets. Everyone knows their role. I couldn't agree with that more. And he says Embiid is unguardable from the mid range. Could take, and that's the crazy thing. I think that is probably, the biggest change. He always had a shot, right? He always had a shot, but his shot now is way better than it was. It was more consistent. It was smoother. And he's not dropping a ball as low. Remember when, we would always get mad and he would grab the ball and he would drop it low, bring it up high, and then sometimes he would turn it over. He's not doing that. He's protecting the ball a lot better and he's making quicker decisions. And I think that was the whole thing. Make quicker decisions, right? Make quicker decisions and make sure you're going to know what to do with the ball more quickly. And I think that's what Nurse got into his head. And you think about it, this entire staff as a whole, has really turned this Sixers team around from a morale standpoint, from a confidence standpoint. And it's something I didn't think that could be done. I really didn't. I did not think it could be done. And, they're, like I said, man, this year is wide open, man. I don't care what anybody says. This year is wide open. These teams, are not as invincible as they once were. Not as invincible as they once were. Joe says, agree with the mid-range is deadly. Not only that Joe swings the ball to get the contact, but this year tries to get the two rather than being content with the whistle. Exactly. Like 100% spot on. Again, like this is the point. This is the point we all are witnessing with Joel Embiid. This is the point we are all witnessing with Joel Embiid. And I think we have to finally lock it in, put the seatbelt on, and just enjoy this friggin' ride, man. Enjoy this friggin' ride. Because that's the one thing I want to say. I'll be damned. And we're going to talk about a little bit, but, let's not continue to harp on the Eagles. The Eagles have, here's the thing. And I get it. We're a football town. I understand. And we all bleed green. And we're going to talk about the Jalen Hurts report. And I'm going to say some controversial things about who I want as offensive coordinator. And I can't wait to hear what everybody tells me. But my thing is, this is January 22nd. Okay? This is January 22nd. We have an entire offseason to think about the Philadelphia Eagles, right? We didn't even get to draft day yet, right? Let's at least get this season out of the way for the Philadelphia 76ers and watch Embiid just continue to make history. Let's please, put the game on. I don't care if you don't even want to watch the entire game. You just want to watch Joe. I'm telling you right now, I say this to my kids all the time. When I watch Michael Jordan, I always say, man, there was nothing like it. And I'm so glad I got to watch it. When I watch Kobe, same thing. When I watch Vince Carter, same thing. When I watch Steph Curry, same thing. I'll give it to him when I watch LeBron, same thing. When I watch AI, same thing. And now I get to watch Joe. And I would regret any games that I did not watch and did not witness if I was that guy. And I don't want anybody to be that guy because it's different watching highlights, man. Like I said to my boys, when we watched The Last Dance together, and they admitted, they were like, wow, Dad, I didn't know this. I didn't know that. And, they were like, wow, I just seeing Jordan on highlights, he's so good. I said, man, this is highlights. You have no idea. There is a different vibe that when you're in the flow of the game compared to watching a highlight. It just is. And just tonight, to hear the buzz at the Wells Fargo Center, to watch the reactions of both teams, to watch Nick Nurse say, I need to figure out a way, when they tried to force the ball into Joe twice, Okay. And it was kind of like, okay, what are we going to do here? They're making a little small run. And you saw Nick Nurse get frustrated and throw timeout. That wasn't frustration at the team. That was frustration. And he was saying, you know what? You know what? I'm going to make sure that we devise a couple plays and talk to this team that Joe gets this ball and Joe gets this record. And that's what I love about Nick Nurse. And my man Joe says he made some average players in Toronto available and compete after Kawhi left. Knew he'd make them much better. Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, man, he's one of the reasons why my boy Fred VanVleet got paid. Think about it. He's one of the reasons why Freddie V got paid. He made Freddie V into a household name, man. Like, he took a lot of average players, like Joe said, and made them very, very competitive. And he's doing that here. I mean, honestly, did I ever think that I would be watching a team that was passing the ball to Eddie House Jr. and for a corner three? No, never in my wildest dreams. But you know what? He's given House the confidence. He's given him the confidence. But again, to say, I'm not going to shoot it all the time, but if I'm open, I'm available to make the shot. Joe says VanVleet needed to get paid. What's he eat? Man, I'll tell you what, man. VanVleet, I'll tell you, that boy, wow. He is like, he to me, he's like a more, how do I say it? A more healthier looking version than the microwave and Vinny Johnson. Like, Vinny Johnson was a bull, right? Vinny Johnson was a bull. Vinny Johnson didn't have the best offensive game in the world, but he was a bull. VanVleet's a bull, right? But this dude he could be silky smooth too, man. Like, he makes it look good. I like Fred V. I do. I like Freddie V. And guess what? Nick Nurse made Freddie V. You know, and that's the thing. Like, Nick Nurse, think about this, Joe. And think about this, everybody. Get this HRS Late Nights. I'm Tony Cutillo. Make sure you're following. Follow Heat Ratio Sports for the HRS Late Nights. Listen, my boy Dave just dropped a bell ring report today. Make sure you check it out. Talk about the Eagles a little bit. We got some things. Got some an Eagles surprise. One of my favorite peeps going to be coming on board soon. I can't wait. Can't wait to see what his segment's going to be all about. And that's what I'm about, man. I'm about, the way, just real quick, just so everybody knows what I'm trying to do here is, this is going to be the main show. Okay. So the main show on Heat Ratio Sports Network is going to be the late night show. It's going to be HRS Late Nights. And everything else that comes aboard, I'm not going to bore everybody with 1 to 2 hour shows. Well, the HRS guys we're going to get a little HRS live, maybe once a month, get together, but everything else is kind of be segments, because I like segments, 5-minute segments, 10-minute segments tops, man. Again, pick a point. Let's talk about it. What are you feeling? What I'm not saying, hey, take this and make it a pick. No, man. Like, I just like segments. I like segments. I think it's better. It allows the topic to bleed, and then it allows you a little more substance and a little more flow. So you don't have this, every hour. I don't need that, right? Nobody needs that. So this will be the main show. It's HRS Late Nights. I'm going to cut myself off a night. It's going to be Monday to Thursday. We will have shows on the weekends from time to time, but for the most part, Monday through Thursday. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not saying this cocky. I'm saying this confident. If you're listening to this program and you're in Philadelphia, okay, I challenge you to tell me to find another outlet at 11 o'clock to 12:30 or 1 a.m. that's going to be more enticing, because that's what I'm trying to do. And I love the late nights. I love the audience. Javon's always in here. Joe's always in here. My man Adam's always checking in. My man David always checking in. Talk about AI earlier. I will get to that, David. I'm sorry. I just didn't want to take away from Joel. But that's what I want to do. And I think that I can really help make a little dent into what's out there right now. Give everybody a little alternative and create this more like a community and not just all about one person. Right. So thinking about getting back to the topic at hand, Joe, think about this. He actually is probably going to get Tobias Harris paid again. If you think about it, and it's not going to be Sixers, obviously, but he's going to get Toby paid again. When we all thought Tobias was dead in the water, when we all thought Tobias was just going to kind of walk away in the greener pastures, maybe find a home somewhere as, at the end of the year, I mean, in the offseason, if he wasn't traded yet, as maybe like a piece. No, man, guess what? Tobias is going to get paid. He's going to get paid again. Now, obviously not no max money, right? But he's going to make cash. And that's going to be because of Nick Nurse. And think about like DeAnthony Melton, man. He's going to get paid. Like the new Sammy Sleeves, Tobias is the new another $100 million contract. Joe, I'm telling you, man, Tobias, he better thank his lucky stars that they brought Nick Nurse in here, because he is just taking Nick Nurse is just elevating Tobias Harris to getting paid once again. And I love it. I absolutely love it, man. I love watching what Nick Nurse, is looking to do. I do. I watch him on the side. I watch it. It's so crazy, man. Here's a good. This going Clutch Sports right now. Getting some snippets as I'm here. They posted it was from Austin Krell. Obviously covers the NBA. Great job for the Sixers. It says, reporter asked, what have you changed about your preparation, if anything at all? Joel says, well, tonight I didn't prepare myself. I didn't warm up. The MVP got time for jokes after chopping 70. But that's Joe, man. That is so Joe. And that's the crazy part about Joel Embiid. That is the crazy part about Joel Embiid. Embiid on this quote for Wemby. So Wemby's reaction says, he says it's inspiring. It's a big man's game. Embiid says, I hope in a couple years, hopefully when I don't have to guard him and I'm out of the league, he's able to do the same thing and go out and break all these records and possibly break Wilt's record of 100 points. Right? I mean, you think about it. It's just, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's just, again, it feels surreal sometimes. And you just got to feel it. You just got to feel it. So, again, Joel Embiid dropping 70 tonight. Historic performance, record-breaking performance. Again, if you haven't watched the Sixers, you got to make sure you watch them. I'm going to leave it at that. And, again, they just keep winning as well. So shout out to Nick Nurse for turning this team around, for making me a believer again. Shout out to Nick Nurse for actually making the Sixers a fun product to watch. Shout out to Nick Nurse for not doing the dribble handoff at the top of the key at nauseum. And shout out to Nick Nurse for actually giving the young players a chance to play and actually get some confidence. So if you do have to use them, guess what? They're already confident enough to get in the game and actually be productive. Joe says Wemby needs to add size, and like Barkley said of the big women in San Antonio, eat those churros. Oh man, it was great. Barkley is great, man. You gotta love the round amount of rebound. But you're right, Wemby needs a lot of size. He'll get it. He is smooth though. He's silky smooth. I mean, I don't know obviously what his ceiling's going to be. Well, all I know is you're with one of the greatest of all time in pop, who's the lineage of players that he in big men that he's been able to elevate. David Robinson, Tim Duncan, and to a certain extent, LaMarcus Aldridge, right? I mean, big guys to be able to be very productive within the NBA in their own style. And listen, that's why I think Wemby has such a huge bright future. If he was on a different squad with a different coach, a different system, different culture, I may have my hesitations, but him there with Pop in San Antonio couldn't be a better fit. Now, unfortunately, we got to go from good to bad. We just spent 32, 35 minutes on the Sixers and Joel Embiid, which, yes, We needed that. We needed to open up to that because now we start talking about the funeral and the funeral of what I suspected was going to be Nick Sirianni, but it definitely does not seem like it's going to be Nick Sirianni. It has been a long day in Philadelphia. It's been a long couple days in Philadelphia. It's been a long couple months in Philadelphia. And I am utterly shocked that Nick Sirianni will be back as the head coach of this football team. I am. And the crazy thing about it, and what makes me a little bit uneasy as well, is why don't they just name Howie and Jeff the coach? You know, instead of having a corporate mouthpiece and a guy that you're just going to funnel information into to go out there and talk at a press conference, why not just do it yourself? So the ultimatum was he was told what he's going to have to do. So, like, think about that. He's told, no, you need to fire these two guys, and you're going to basically hire who we like. I don't understand how that works, man. I don't understand how that works. Like, I coach right now, and I'm telling you right now, there's no way in hell I would be able to do that. I have a different mindset. I'm a different animal, man. Like, I need people to be comfortable with me, and I also need to be comfortable with them. I can't just be giving guys or women and dictate these are going to be your coaches, and I'm going to go out and just win. No, that's not how that works. But that's how it works in Philadelphia. That's how it works in Philadelphia. Now, I suspect that they put this press conference to Wednesday because I honestly think that they already know who they're going to hire. I think that was possibly the longest part of these entire face-to-face meetings. And I think they want these people in place. I really do. It's crazy, right? It's crazy. Because here we go with another year. So I want to hear, this is what I want to hear from you. I want to hear from everybody out there. Now I heard all the people, I hope the people feel the same way. Because when I came into this year and I said, you know what? I'm still good. I'm not worried that they change coordinators. I'm not worried that they have new systems. I'm good, man. I think, and everybody told me, nah, man, you don't know. You don't realize how hard it is to change your defensive and offensive coordinator. You know, again, you don't know how hard that is, and it's going to take them time to gel. And I said, wait a minute. Why? If they came within the system, why? So my point is, if that's the case, you're wasting another year. So basically what you're telling me, for all the people that follow that narrative and follow that line of thinking, you're telling me you're going to waste another year because you're going to tell me that hiring two coordinators, again, is going to be too much of a change and too much of an adjustment. And again, you are wasting a year, which absolutely sucks. And I'm sorry, but it's inexcusable. It's inexcusable. This just shows me what we kind of already known, and that's that the head coach on this football team has absolutely zero say in anything. He has to deflect. He has to pivot. He has to turn to the guidance of Jeff Lurie and Howie Roseman on every single decision he has to make. And I'm going to tell you something right now. You mean to tell me that those players that see this and understand this aren't going to lose some respect for Nick Sirianni? Because not only is he a yes man or a corporate mouthpiece, but he's not going to deflect and he's not going to go on his own. And he's basically admitting to falling in line like a soldier. You mean to tell me that veterans are going to buy into that and they're not going to think that's disrespectful? Of course. I mean, they're not going to lose respect for him. Of course they are. Of course they are. You know, I thought, again, Joe, I know you're not a Hugh Douglas fan, but I was out today and I threw it on for a minute. And I love when Hugh said to me, or not to me, but to the radio, and he was like, hey man, where's those jobs at? Where's those jobs when you can mess up everything? You can mess up a whole system for half the year and you still get to come back for the same pay. And I was like, you know what, man? That's so right. So here we go. Who's this? So my man Brian says, you have a lot to say about people that show up to work every day. Okay. Who am I talking about that shows up to work every day? Nick Sirianni? Is that what you're talking about? I'm curious, man. Listen, if you're going to come with the statement, you got to get a little more specific about that. That's what I want to know. Who shows up to work every day, man? Are you talking about Nick Sirianni? Because I'm curious. I'm curious with that. That's a great statement because I do have a lot to say about it. I have a lot to say about a lot of things. You haven't even got me started yet. I'm actually being pretty, I would say pretty calm. Brian says, not you. So who you talking about? Brian, no, I'm serious. I'm not mad. I just like it. Like, let's have a conversation. I'm just curious. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just curious because there's a lot going on right here. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to dissect. And one thing I will tell you is I don't speculate. Like, I don't do hot takes and I don't do fabricated arguments. I'm just giving you my full-on opinion about what I think is going on. Joe says, I like you. I don't like his little part. Yeah, I definitely don't like his part. And I'm not a Giglio guy. Not at all. Not a Joe Giglio guy. You want to talk about fabricated arguments. You want to talk about a guy who's just trying to stir the pot and to get rid. That's what Joe is. He's always been that guy. But you know what's funny, Joe? Those guys continue to live on, man. Those guys continue to live on. So again, Brian, if you're talking about in general, say you have you have a lot to say about people that show up to work every day. I mean, look, you can show up to work every day, but if you show up to work every day and you're unsuccessful and you're not putting forth a specific effort or you're not trying to adjust or change, what does that say? Like, are we allowed to call people out on that? Because that's what I'm curious about. Joe says, Brown, Smith, Goddard, and Swift, and you don't put up 30 a game. It's inexcusable from coaching and the coordinator, especially, Joe, when we watched them do it. That's the crazy thing to me. I don't understand. Javon says, don't get me started on WIP. I saw a tweet from the NSAM. They were discussing. Oh, man. I'm glad you brought this up. Javon, I literally, I want to throw my phone across the room. I really did. I just, you mean to tell me, like, I even heard people are even, you talk about overreact. People even talking about now, they're fully admitting they think that we paid the wrong guy, fully admitting that Jalen Hurts is not the guy. He's untradeable. He's got a no trade clause. What are we going to do? Are you kidding? Like, really? Are you kidding right now? Like, I don't, again, I don't, that's the one thing I hate about this town. It is. It's the one thing I hate about this town. And we're getting to that in a second. Brian, all right. She says, so you blame the coach for the players not performing. I get it. Right? I get it. And I heard the King, speaking of WIP, I heard Eskin talk about, he's it's the players, not the coach. Here's what I will say, Brian. I blame the coach for not preparing his players to perform. How's that? That's what I say. I blame the coach for not preparing his players to perform. Now, if he prepares his players to perform and they go out there and they don't miss 35 tackles and they don't run the wrong routes and they don't get stuck with offsides multiple different times and fumbling balls and free balling on play calls. If that happens, or if that doesn't happen, no problem. I don't blame the coach. But I blame the coach because these dudes were not prepared. I'm sorry. You were not prepared. You can go. I don't care if you're even the beginner of breaking down football film. These dudes were not prepared. They weren't. They were not prepared week in and week out. There was, and if they were, okay, and that changed on game day, that's still on the coach. Listen, I just went to a tournament this weekend. I coached, went to the indoor cups in over in Jersey. Okay. In the net, in the dome over there, or not Jersey, in PA, Palmyra, PA. Okay, up towards Hershey. And my players got smoked. I'm being honest. My team got smoked. We played 3 games. We gave up 21 goals and we scored 1. Now I have a very good elite division travel team who has won tournaments, who've played well. They've been together for a long time. But guess who was to blame for that? Me. I was the coach. You know why? I didn't prepare them for that. We haven't touched the ball in a month. I signed them up to a tournament. I knew they would be overmatched in. And I did not put them in the right position to play. Simple as that. They gave effort. They were running through walls out there. Even though we were getting smoked 8-1, they were still running full length 50 or 18 to 18 with no issues. That shit was on me, man. I didn't prepare them, and I take full responsibility for that. Full responsibility. Javon says, I got so heated this morning when I saw them discussing it. Like they weren't just singing Harris's praises. Like, that's the thing. Last year, they were all over his jock, right? Oh, we love Jalen. We love Jalen, right? And then as soon as it goes wrong, boom. Now, all of a sudden, we want Jordan Love because all of a sudden he had a good 6 to 7 weeks that he was basically, I mean, come on, man. We can't just keep jumping to the hot topic all the time. We just gotta stop doing that in this town. So my man Brian, I appreciate this, man. If you're a new follower, if you like the show and the format, if you subscribe, I'd be greatly appreciated. As you'll see, I'm not going to scream at anybody. You're not wrong. Let's debate, and I like this. You say, how do you know he isn't preparing them? Are you at practice watching them? You don't know what is behind closed doors. Listen, you're not wrong, right? You're not wrong. But let me ask you this. I'll throw this back at you. So if you have a rookie in Sidney Brown come out and specifically say, now he's a rook at practice, on the team, was actually starting a few games before he got hurt, right? Because of injuries. You have a rookie come out and say, well, this is what happens when you practice. You play how you practice. Already alluding to the fact that this was like a country club. That Javon Hargrave goes to San Francisco and he's like, wait a minute. What is going on here? What is going on here? This is not what I'm used to. And Joe, great point. Thank you. And Brian, this is how we do it. We're not ganging up on anybody, just so you know. These are just points that we all are trying to prove. Like Landon Dickerson said the other day, they weren't prepared for the blitzes. He specifically said Todd Bowles, who is the king of blitzing, legitimately right now. He loves the blitz. Todd Bowles. You've seen him in this town. You already know who this guy is, and you still weren't freaking prepared. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? No hot routes? Nobody up the middle? Nothing? They weren't prepared, man. That's like, again, you're right. We are not at the NovaCare Center. We're not there saying, hey, listen, what are they doing in practice? there's more to it than just practice, man. Behind closed doors, you're right. There's film study, right? There's a lot there's a lot of film work. How about Jordan Davis? Was he prepared to play? What, he played like 4 snaps because he was so out of shape? I mean, like, did anybody check that? Did anybody make sure that he was getting the workouts that he needed to get? The cardio he needed, whatever. I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Like, because we all have to remember something. The coach takes the fall for everything. Players don't get fired, man. The players don't get fired. The coach's got to go. The coach has got to go. So here's what I will say. It definitely isn't all Nick Sirianni's fault, but a lot of it falls on Nick for not having these guys prepared. And listen, indirectly, possibly. This is what I could say, Brian. Possibly, he was trying so hard and his mind was spinning so much that maybe possibly he just lost sight of things. And maybe as a young coach, his 4th year, maybe he's still trying to figure some shit out, man. Listen, we were rolling last year, right? And you were rolling for those first 10 games. And now when you have to face adversity, that's when you find out, right? That's when you find out. When you start facing adversity, that's when you find out what kind of coach you are. Can you bring players back? Can you take the team and bring it back? Can you consistently push them past all the rhetoric, past all the narratives, and can you get them to get back on track and perform like you know? Now, Brian says, don't get me wrong, not defending the coaching staff. I feel, though, everyone is accountable for their job, and each and every one should be held accountable. But let's go back to the Andy Reid era. You got to put players in position to make plays, right? Is that what you're talking about? And so should your boss be fired if you aren't doing your job? If it's one person, no. But if it's a team of people, yes. So let's do this. So let's think about this, Brian. If you have, let's say you are a pipe welder. Okay. I used to work in a union environment and I know all about it. Say you're a pipe welder and there are 9 of you in this group. And you're foreman, you're on a turnaround, and you go out to the field and you're field welding. And now you've all been trained how to field weld. Every single one of you guys weld the wrong seam. And not only the wrong seam, but weld the wrong pattern. Whose fault's that? Got to be the boss. Got to be the boss. Because here's the thing, Brian, the way I look at it is, okay, maybe they all had the wrong direction, right? So somebody wants to argue with me and say, maybe they had the wrong direction. Maybe somebody gave them the wrong instructions, right? But here's the thing. Shouldn't that boss be the person that's overseeing all 9 of those guys? Shouldn't that boss be the one to catch it and be able to adjust halfway through the weld? Soon as they take that welding stick and put that to the pipe, man, you get a little bit of welding on there, he should be able to stop right there. But whoa, what are we doing? But Nick Sirianni didn't do that. He continued to tell us week in and week out, my system works. Remember that? My system works. We're just going to keep pushing. We got to execute. We got to execute. We got to execute. Never changed. Never did anything. So that's got to be on Nick. That's my point. So you listen, you're right, both worker and boss. He says, so Joe says, so Brian, what changes in your opinion for them to improve on wasting those last 8 games? I mean, think about it, Brian. That's my biggest point. Like, this is what I've always been scared about Nick Sirianni. Like, what's going to happen when he has to pivot? What's going to happen to Nick Sirianni when he has to pivot? Is he going to be able to adjust? And he, unfortunately, he's kind of showing us that he doesn't know how. And not only does he not know how, he's not going to have the chance. He's not going to have the chance because you know why? Because Jeffrey and Howie are going to tell him exactly what to do. Look at this. Look at the coordinator searches. Think about that, right? Look at the coordinator searches. They're automatically, I want a veteran guy when it comes to defense. Okay, 100%. If you're not taking Ron Rivera or Wink Martindale, you're nuts, in my opinion. And my hope is that if they take either one of those guys, they may possibly sway Howie into making the linebacker more of a focal point on the defense. I mean, Jesus Christ, Ron Rivera is a former freaking linebacker, for Christ's sake. Right? If anybody can't flip the script of somebody's mind, it'd be like bringing Seth Joyner in here, or bringing Jeremiah Trotter in here, right? A former linebacker. I mean, that's what Ron Rivera is. So I listen. I would love Ron Rivera here. I'm fully on record saying I want Ron Rivera. Now, Brian says, so look at this. We went to the Super Bowl last year, different staff. The system worked. This year hired new coaches, and they were bad picks. But who was responsible for it? Is it Howie or is it Nick? Well, here's the thing. I honestly think that both of these guys were Howie's pick, not Nick's. I still think Brian Johnson was forced. I think Brian Johnson was a package deal with the Jalen Hurts contract. I do. I think that it fully was aware that Brian Johnson going to be your offensive coordinator. Now, defensively, they had it all figured out with Vic Fangio. And then when that ship sailed because of Jonathan Gannon sticking it up their ass, what happened was they pivoted and Howie went for Sean Desai. Now, I still think Sean Desai got a raw deal. I still think Sean Desai is a decent head coach. I'm going to continue to say this, man. He's going to go somewhere and be successful. You do not sit there with Pete Carroll and not learn anything. This dude wasn't even given a chance. There was so much disruption within that locker room and in that coaching staff that he didn't even have a fair shake, man. He didn't. And the only reason why Patricia was Nick's choice. Okay? So let's think about that. Patricia was Nick's choice. Nick, think about how the dynamic works, right? Think about Nick. Think about this dynamic, Brian. He doesn't want Sean Desai, but they jam Sean Desai down his throat. They say, you're getting Sean Desai. So the first chance he has, they bring in Matt Patricia because he's like, Matt Patricia is going to be my guy once I can prove that Sean Desai can't do the job. And it was almost like Sean Desai, everything was out for Sean Desai from week one. Like it's crazy. Like, what does Sean Desai do? And I'll be honest with you, he's the one dude who I ain't heard a peep from. I never said a word, never came out, said anything crazy. This dude just went and did his job. Even when he was demoted, he never said a damn word. He just took it and spit it out like it was nothing, man. Like I gotta give him some credit, man. I definitely gotta give him some credit. Jeff McClain, Javon's Jeff McClain reported that they took Desai off third down defense during the bye week, and after that, the Eagles' third down defense plummeted. Maybe you know what? I didn't know that. So maybe that was kind of like their, okay, let's see what you can do, right? So that's great information, Javon. Thank you. I did not know that. So that changes things a little bit, right? They gave him opportunities, But again, they didn't give him great opportunities within the season with a lot of those players that were already flawed anyway, right? Now, Javon also says, I'm definitely down with Rivera. Puts another adult in the room and someone that could coach up defense. Listen, not just that, but like everything that Rivera has been through and who he's coached. And I mean, the guy fought chemo. The guy is a survivor, a warrior. Why he was coaching. He's coached some really good teams. He's got a brilliant mind. You can think about what you want about him and say that he can't coach an entire football squad. But this is what I always say, man. Take Romeo Crennel out of the head coaching role, put him back into being a DC. Take Jim O'Brien out of the head coaching role, put him in as OC, right? These guys produce, right? These guys, take Vance Joseph out, put him as DC, he produces. Wade Phillips, Mike Martz, all these guys, which guess what? Brings me to what my recommendation is. I want Chip Kelly. I would literally, hear me out, fellas. I literally would go out and I would have a conversation with Chip, and I would talk him out of, I would talk to him about being the offensive coordinator for this team. Think about that for a little bit. Now, Brian says him being head coach should, but when you have an OC and DC coaches that are in the positions, they should help with adjustments. Nick is one person, can't be all over the adjustments because eventually they'll fall apart. Well, guess what, Brian? I think that was the problem. Those guys at times, I think, wanted to adjust, and he overruled them. Listen, it even came out in that report that we're going to talk about that Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni were rarely on the same page. Think about it. They're rarely on the same page. So, I mean, like, there was so much that went on. And we haven't even got to the leadership issue with Jalen Hurts that's being spoken of. That is a huge deal, man. We all need to find out what's going on with that. Like, that's above everything. That's above everything. And I want to look at this realistically, and I don't want to sit there and just call a guy, speculate or anything like that. But I just, we all saw the same things that are being reported, right? We saw it. We all saw it. We talked about it numerous times. He wasn't the same guy. He wasn't as demonstrative on the sideline. He didn't have any big expressions on the sideline. He didn't celebrate, right? He just wasn't the same guy. So we got to get into that. But let's keep going, because Brian, I like this, Brian. I appreciate all your interjection here. This is why I love doing these shows. And I started this up because I like to go back and forth. You say, I feel like the OC and DC couldn't make the adjustments and Nick didn't have the help or support to do his job. I mean, listen, you could be right, man. Like, you could be right. Maybe he was a lone wolf. Maybe he was on the island all by himself. But the problem is, when you look at that, and you think, even if that is the case, why couldn't they make the adjustments? Right? So you have to think about that. Why couldn't they? Were they not worthy enough to make the adjustments? Or did they try to make the adjustments and Nick didn't want to make them? Or, was there some kind of animosity because maybe Nick kept overruling them in film study or overruling them in the playbook? And they finally said, screw it. I'm not going to help this dude. This dude doesn't want our help. Like, that's the stuff that you're right. We don't know what's happened behind closed doors. But the one thing we do know, Brian, is something went way south from this team. A team that was clicking on all cylinders last year. A team that was a couple plays away from winning a Super Bowl. A team that brought these guys back and started off 10-1 and then just plummeted. Something had to happen that was pretty severe, or something was brewing that finally exploded. So that's why I keep saying that a lot of this has to be on Nick, because, I'm sure he knew, right? I'm sure he knew what was kind of brewing, and he didn't take, and I bet you one day one day when this is all said and done, whether he lasts longer and he retires from here or, whatever the case may be, I bet you he comes out and he admits that he should have jumped in front of the situation before it got out of hand. Brian also says they didn't have the criteria to plan or scheme against good coaches. I don't know, man. I think they had it, and I just think they got outcoached. Sometimes you just get outcoached. I mean, think about this. I think, Brian, let me ask you this. I think me and you can both agree that Andy Reid, the 100% lockdown Hall of Famer, right? He's a lockdown Hall of Famer, legend, Andy Reid, head coach. I don't know how far you go back, Brian. And I'm not going to ask you to say your age, okay? But when Andy Reid was in his heyday with McNabb and they were winning those NFC Easts, and if you recall, in his early years, he was getting outcoached by guys like Jim Fossil, John Fox, just to name a couple. So it happens, right? 30. All right, I'm 45. So I may remember those days a little more than you. But that's why I'm saying that, Nick Sirianni not only was outcoached, but his message was falling on deaf ears, not just with the young guys, but the veterans, man. Like that's my biggest issue. My biggest worry is, listen, when your message falls on both levels, you have a serious problem on your hands. And you really have to figure out that problem. So let me ask you this, Brian, all due respect, I value your opinion here. I really want to know, because I'm going to give you an idea of what I'm thinking. If, which I still think is the case, that his players gave up on him, and those players stopped listening to the Sirianni message. If that is necessarily the case, even if it was for 5 or 6 weeks, what gives you the confidence that he's going to be able to win that locker room back for next year? Because that's my biggest fear. I never advocate for people to lose their job. I'm not that kind of guy. Even though they make millions of dollars, obviously they still have pride. They still have families. They still have things going on. Who knows, right? They have lifestyles. But my whole thing is, I have no confidence right now that he's going to be able to fix everything that's wrong right now. And because I know as well as the next guy, there's a reason why head coaches are let go. It's number one, it's when the message falls short. It's when you're not getting into the heads of the players, when you're not getting into their mindset of, yes, this system works. This culture works. We run this play. I mean, listen, we can blame it on Jalen Hurts if you want to for kind of just going out against the play calls and just going his own way and throwing the ball deep when it was supposed to be short, acting like basically he knows more than everybody else, right? We could blame him too. But again, at the end of the day, if that is what was happening, Sirianni has a hand in that because he was allowing it to happen. Like, he was allowing it to happen. I know this is the NFL, man. I get it. And we're talking about grown men and we're not talking about youngsters. I understand. And we're talking about millions and millions of dollars and franchise contract quarterbacks. And I understand all that. But I'm going to tell you something right now. 100%. As a coach, I have done the extreme when people have not listened to me. I mean, I'm talking about, like, for soccer, I'll play with 9. So on 11 on 11, I would play with 9. And the ref would look at me like I was nuts. Listen, if my best player goes out there and he wants to run rogue, guess who we get pulled? My best player. Sit down, bro. You're done. You don't want to listen? Sit down. So, again, I know it's the NFL and it's a little harsh, and I could, you can get that, away with that where kids that are a little younger and not grown men. But I'm just saying, like, I'm just using that as an example. Like, that has a hand with, Knicks has a hand in that as well by allowing that lease to be longer and longer and longer every week. Brian says, I agree with you that we should not lost to bad teams. But let me say this: when you need to lean on vets like Kelsey, Graham, and Cox, their bodies are beat up. 100%, man. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. They don't get paid to be tired. I'm being honest, man. Like, you don't get paid to be tired. You are paid like the top athletes in the world. Why? Because you take care of your body and you work yourself up not to be tired. Listen, injuries are different. I get it. Everybody's fighting something, man. Everybody's fighting something, unless you're soft like Debo Samuel. Yeah, I did say that because I think Debo's soft. There's no way in hell Debo goes out of that game. Like, that game at that time was in the hands of the Green Bay Packers, and that dude just said, "Yeah, I don't care what kind of test came out, whatever." He didn't play. Stephon Diggs, soft, another softy, in my opinion. All that talk Stephon Diggs did in the offseason about, I want to be the guy, I want to play calls. So all your guys get hurt. Gabe Davis gets hurt, right? You're all, and you're relying on guys like Shakir, and all of a sudden, you can't even catch a ball, man. You can't make a play, really? Come on. So don't even get me started on that. Joe says Sirianni clearly ran out of miracle grow to water and fertilize his flowers. Yeah, he talked about those blooming flowers, man. Brian says only can lean on them guys, especially the O-line. They busted their ass game in and game out, but it does come down to the execution from the players and coach. It's a team effort. You're right. But let me say something about this offensive line. So let's think about this. How many times have we watched this offensive line just basically maul the other team? How many times do we watch this offensive line just completely out body and out physical the defensive line in the trenches for the other team? Multiple times. This offensive line was not built to pass block 40 to 50 snaps a game. This offensive line was built to push forward and not lean back. No pun intended, Fat Joe. Okay? It wasn't. And if you want to talk about execution and you want to talk about piss poor planning, well, there's no more piss poor planning than that right there, to not even know the strengths of your own goddamn players. Okay? So that's a problem. That's why I point to Sirianni. But you're right. It is a team effort. It is a team effort. 100% agree, man. I am not saying that the players are not privy to the criticism. I'm not saying that they're not worthy of, being called out. I am not saying any of that. But what I'm saying is I still can't get past the fact that Nick Sirianni is back a head coach. Now, Joe says he loves the narrative. Hurts is stoic and didn't show any pressure last year. This year, when they struggle, it's a negative character flaw. I mean, here's the thing. It's such a tough discussion here with that, because you can lead by example. I do love that phrase. I love people that say lead by example. I love it. I do. But sometimes situations present themselves to where you may need to change a little bit to explain to the guys that you're all in, right? And what I mean by that is all in to change. If you're showing an unwillingness to change, well, that's going to filter down to the rest of the team. That's going to filter down to the morale of the locker room. And when you're not involving yourself in certain things and you're not showing emotion with certain things, and there's a lot going on with Jalen right now. I didn't think we were going to have this issue. I didn't. And I think it's a real issue. But I don't think it's a purposely done issue, if that makes sense. Like, it's all about, how can I change for the betterment of the team? Yes, we brought this up like 3 weeks ago, right? We brought this up at Brian. We got this long conversation, and I'll get to your points about the defense in 1 second. But we brought up this long conversation about quite possibly indirectly the constant grind for perfection with Jalen Hurts, the constant need to be the best from Jalen Hurts could also have an indirect negative effect on the players in the locker room to say maybe the ceiling is too high. Maybe I'm not Jalen Hurts. Right. I'm not. And guess what? If I'm not Jalen Hurts, I feel like I'm always going to fall short of Jalen Hurts' expectations. And I think that some of that is filtering within this team. And I think as a leader, as a pure leader, you need to see that. I think you need to see that. And you need to understand that, yes, that's my personality. I've always been like that. But in the same token, I do know that it's not beneficial for this team moving forward, especially with me being the leader of this squad. So in essence, I need to change a little bit and show everybody it's okay. Like, it's all about effort, not about perfection. It's all about grind, not about perfection. Jason Kelce is a pure example of that. He consistently talks about it. It's about how hard you work. It's about the passion you put behind your work. It's not about how much you perfect it. The complete disconnect from what the mindset of Jalen Hurts is. And if that disconnect presents itself with two strong-minded individuals, what do you think is going on with the rest of the team? So, when two players run the wrong route and they bump into each other and Jalen throws a pass and it drops between them and he comes off just shaking his head all pissed off and goes and sulks on the bench, instead of going up to the guys, be like, yo, man, what happened? We got to get this shit together. The first thing they're going to say is, damn, we let Jalen down. Look at him. Now he's mad at us. So those things have to be talked about. Brian says, yep, we need more leadership like Dawkins. Listen, that's why I want Ron Rivera. I think Ron Rivera or Wink Martindale, one of those two guys, I really would take Rivera first, just because of the history and because of who he is, who he's played for. Obviously played in this team as well, as long with the Chicago Bears. But I look at him and say he's the closest thing we'll get to a Jim Johnson style of offense. And that's why I want Ron Rivera. Been around the league. And here's the other thing, they'll bring Ron Rivera as kind of like the fallback guy. So if Sirianni takes another step back halfway through the season, they won't think twice about getting rid of Sirianni and just naming, Riverboat Ron, the interim coach. A guy who's done it before, a guy who can relate to the players, a guy to understand. So that they're thinking about that as well. Now, Brian says quality execution takes quality planning. Can you relate? Yes. 100%. Quality planning. You need a quality plan to execute it properly, right? You can't just go out and just execute. Execute what? Execute the plan. And if it's a piss poor plan, the execution may happen, but the overall success is going to suck, right? But if you have the quality planning, right, you're going to get the quality execution because you're going to pay attention to detail, right? Attention to detail, ATD. It's going to be huge. And I think, yes, I can relate. But again, I still think that Sirianni has to take the fall for everything that happened. And again, it wasn't just losing games. It was a complete shit show, a full disruption, a full blast of everybody just filtering off that path. So that's why I think that lack of playing, just like Joe says, took the words right out of my mouth, lack of planning and preparation will 100% fall on the coach. 100%. It's his job to make sure these guys are prepared. It just is. It just is. And the damning point, Brian, is this is not like this is new territory for Nick Sirianni and the Eagles. We've watched him. He's already succeeded at this, and he's done it before. So it's not like he can't do it. These are some of the same players. And some of the same players played a lot differently this year than they did last year. That's got to be on the coach. Now, speaking of coaches, Again, this is Heat Ratio Sports. This is HRS Late Nights. I'm Tony Cutillo. Make sure you're following the show. You're liking, you're subscribing. Be tremendously helpful. Brian, I have not talked to Brian, and Brian has joined a program, which I'm very excited for. Another new voice to the community that we're trying to build over here at HRS, giving people a different alternative for late nights starting at 11 o'clock. And I do guarantee you guys this. As this show starts to grow, which it will, because we have great insight from commenters, from callers, from tweeters, you name it. Somebody's going to start to do the same thing, but that's fine. I don't mind it. I'm not here to compete with anybody. I'm just here to be me and have fun and be passionate and talk about what I like to talk about, which is sports on a local and a national level. And speaking of that, I will be on Sirius on not this weekend because it's a Royal Rumble weekend, but I will be on Sirius the following Saturday, the following Saturday I'll be on Sirius. And then at the end of the month, I will be back on there full time on a weekend. So you'll be hearing me every single Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. and sometimes on Fridays from 8 to 10. So make sure you look for that announcement as well. Love doing those shows on Sirius. So any kind of support you can give me to that show on Sirius, that would be fantastic. It's a really good time where we talk sports betting, we talk fantasy, and we talk normal sports too, man. Like I do bring Philly to the national level. Trust me. Everybody can attest to that. I make sure Philly is well represented on a national stage. But let me ask you, speaking of Philly, we've already talked about Ron Rivera, and we'll end the show on these final 10 minutes here. Chip Kelly. Now, I threw a vote up. I was curious. One trying to be like WIP. I was just trying to be curious because I feel very strongly about this. I feel very strongly that Chip Kelly is a brilliant, innovative mind that got figured out. When he first came in, he was unstoppable. We all remember. He got figured out. Fine. And then he didn't know how to adjust, right? He thought maybe I'll go to a different team. I won't get figured out. Same thing. So now he's reinvented himself out there in UCLA. But the second time around, I will always take a shot on somebody that can break down X's and O's and devise a game plan that's 100% unique. And that's Chip Kelly. He may not be the best communicator. He may not be the best personality, but I can tell you what, man, there are people, and we can all name names, right? You can name guys that run offensive systems that at times are untouchable. Chip had one of those systems. You look at, again, Kyle Shanahan, tremendous offensive play caller. Sean McVay, tremendous offensive play caller. Say what you want. Sean Payton, tremendous offensive play caller. You think about that. I'll give you another one. Legendary, in my opinion. Right? I don't think he did great as a head coach. That's okay. Hell of a coordinator. Mike Martz. Mike Martz, one hell of an offensive coordinator. But I think Chip has the opportunity to be in that category. You know what sold me? I'll tell you what sold me. When he broke down in that press conference about how he would change the entire structure of the NCAA football programs with the playoffs and he strategically put all this in place. You know what I mean? Like strategically put this in place. And it's awesome, man. Like I listened to it. I was like, this dude is still ready to take another NFL team. I think he learned, he knows he can't be a head coach. I think he learned that, and he probably, nor does he want to be a head coach. Like, think about it. Everything that he tried, he was over his head. He was 100% in over his head. But here's what I want Philadelphia to think about, right? This is what I want people to think about. My man Brian says, hey, thanks for listening and doing this. I think it's cool you do this as a full-time job. Hey, my man, listen, I appreciate everybody that checks in on here, man. Like, I do. You opened up some great points, dude. Like, seriously, like again, I'm not that guy to call people dopes and hang up or not take their comments or scream and yell. I'm past that, man. No more wasted energy for Jigsaw this year. I just want to have professional conversations and different opinions and look at things from a different perspective. And you've brought up some fantastic points, man. So again, I'm here every Monday to Thursday, 11 o'clock till 12:31 a.m. So feel free to check in as much as possible. Tell your friends, tell your people, man. We're trying to get this to grow and grow and grow. And again, man, we appreciate your support 100%. So let me ask you this. Brian, if you're still there, I'd love to hear your opinion. And Joe, obviously, Javon, Adam, if you're still there, Dave, if you're still there. So thinking about everything that Chip went through, don't you think it's ironic that he wanted full control? Why do you think he wanted full control? Because he wanted, right? He wanted to make sure as much as he could that the players that he had were the right players for his system, that the coaches he had were the right play. Now, listen, Billy Davis, I mean, do we even have, I'm not saying he hit on him, right? But what I'm saying, though, is he knew Howie was the almighty. He knew that what Howie said ruled. And he was like, listen, man, like, I need to do this my own way. And if I can't do this my own way, there's no point in me doing it. And the only way I could do it is if I have full control. So he was way in over his head, which we get, which is fine. But he knew that he had to do that, at least to try, which is what we all want Nick Sirianni to be able to do, but he's not going to do because he's a puppet. But Chip Kelly, what he did was he was an innovator. And I'll take an innovator any day of the week. An innovator that has a proven story of success. You can't say Chip's offense didn't work. Okay. That's just being naive. Did it get figured out? Absolutely. But it worked. And goddamn, was it like poetry in motion, man. And you can't tell me it wasn't. And listen, his Oregon team, unstoppable, right? Comes to Philadelphia in the beginning, unstoppable. Then it gets figured out. And then Chip doesn't know what to do. Then he goes to San Francisco, still figured out, doesn't know what to do. So he reinvents himself for the college game. But again, think about it. He was able to reinvent himself. He was able to reestablish the flow of an innovative offensive game plan. And thinking about what is right here in Philadelphia, thinking about when he had Michael Vick, now he gets Jalen Hurts. He had Deshaun Jackson. Now he gets A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. He had Zach Ertz. Now he gets Dallas Goedert. He had the bookends on the offensive line. Now he gets Mailata and he gets Lane Johnson. And I guarantee you this. Here's what I will say. I'm going to throw this out there too. That I think 100%, if you bring in a rookie offensive coach, Jason Kelce retires 100%. I think if you bring in a veteran coach, a veteran offensive play caller, and not Jim Bob Cooter or whatever the hell his name is from Detroit, no. But if you bring in a very well-respected and veteran NFL play caller, Jason Kelce doesn't retire. That's just my own take. I honestly think that's what it's going to be. And I think that Jason right away was emotional about the retirement because I think he thought in his mind, like, I can't do another year of this, man. Like, I can't do this anymore. But then when he got the idea, right? When he got the idea of saying to himself, maybe they bring in somebody different here. Maybe I need to retract that statement. because I may want to stick around if we bring in some veteran coaches here that I respect and that are going to give us that shot at opportunity. So I think that's what Jason Kelsey is waiting for. 100%. Brian says correct, because Howie and Jeff have their hands in the jar way too much. So again, 100%. And Chip isn't a puppet. It's just like Jerry Jones and all his coaches, and that's why he won't hire Bill, because he isn't a puppet. Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. Chip Kelly could actually, as an offensive play caller, as a coordinator, I'm telling you, man, like, he's got that Joe Brady kind of flair, man. Like, I like Joe Brady a lot. Like, I get it. He has that flair, man. Has that flair. Brian says a lot of these coaches are realizing that upper offices are too controlling and need to break away, but can't. And that's why, you see when a lot of these veteran guys come back, they're kind of naming their price. They're naming what they want to do. Because again, they're like, listen, man, like, I don't mind relinquishing some control, but I have to have most control to be able to get my, my mark on this system. Now, again, I'm going to say this again, and then I'm going to say this because it's Javon and put him on the spot. I'm going to say this again is why I love the community that's built here. Whether it's 3 people, 10 people, 15 people, 100 people, it doesn't matter. Here's a great point given by Javon that I would never even think about. I did not know, because Javon, again, make sure you're following Javon 10. Javon Alfred, he does a lot of great work, man, and he does a lot of college stuff too. And this is why. His comment, Chip also got Dorian Thomas Robinson, DTR, and Zach Charbonnet. Remember DTR out there in Cleveland, and Zach Charbonnet, who was a very highly touted running back that's playing in Seattle right now, to the pros, and both got drafted in this most recent draft. Chip guys. Chip is not dumb, man. Listen, when I ask this question and I keep bringing up Chip Kelly, please don't think about what Chip was here in the beginning, right? This was Chip's first pro job, man. Look what happened to Nick Saban when he was in Miami, right? I mean, everybody forgets about that. Pete Carroll had listen, he failed, and then he went back, and then he came back and he succeeded. Right? Like, you have to think about that. Like, these guys that come in, especially Chip. Listen, Chip was unique, man. Like, Chip was unique. Chip was, like, I keep saying innovator, because that's technically what he was. And at a time where, there wasn't no McVay, right? Think about it. Like, Chip was that dude. Chip was like the new blood, the new young, here's, speaking of young, who I think is going to come back and be a hell of an offensive coordinator is Cliff Kingsbury. I think he's going to be one hell of an offensive play caller. He had his taste. It was a little too much. He goes to college, reinvents himself, grabs that respect again, and then boom. He's going to come back in the NFL, and he's going to run one hell of an offense. This is what happens, man. This is what happens. Like Javon says, man, Chip Kelly was ahead of his time. Chip was running a no-huddle spread offenses in 2013 that most teams are running today. How many empty sets were run back in 2013? How many 5 wides were run out in 2000, like back then, before Chip Kelly started doing it? Again, like, if anybody that's not a Philly person, right? If you're listening to this show and you're not a Philly person, just go back and watch that first half of the first game on Monday Night Football against the Washington Redskins, where nobody knew what hit them. Just go watch it. It was unbelievable. I don't think you'll ever see something like that again. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew how to stop it. And remember, the offensive linemen their cardio had to be in such high demand, because they were constantly in a no huddle. He really reinvented the wheel, so to speak. And I thought it was fantastic. It just didn't work. It got figured out, right? It got figured out, and Chip found out the hard way that NFL players can't be treated like college players. And he thought, You remember he used to say culture over scheme, culture over scheme. Uh, yeah, maybe not, Chip. He tried. He tried. I mean, they both had to coincide with each other, right? And you can't trade LaShawn McCoy for Kiko Alonso. Okay, it's just not going to happen, right? And then you try to make up for it by signing DeMarco Murray, who was already washed. I get what he was trying to do. Yeah, he listen. Let's not make no mistake about it here. Say what you want, but Shady ain't the best dude in the world, right? He's not. He's got his issues. And Chip was probably like, screw this, man. I don't want this dude here. Deshaun Jackson, I don't want this dude here. Like I'm curious if they're this new podcast they're starting, and I gotta ask you guys about that another time, but I'm curious if they're gonna mention any of that. Because I think it'll be an interesting conversation. Now Brian says you think Harbaugh comes back to the NFL, will he be successful? I do. And you know why, Brian? Second time around. So not and don't get me wrong, not every coach, in my opinion, will be successful on his second or third trip back. But what I'll say is the guys that have success and in other areas and have shown the ability to pivot, like Steve Spurrier, that was a train wreck. Like Steve Spurrier was a train wreck. He had no idea how to adjust, right? But Harbaugh, again, Harbaugh's issue wasn't the fact that he couldn't adjust. A lot of Harbaugh's issues were locker room issues, were how to relate to players, how to relate, like, and he went to the big dance, bro. Like we all forget about Colin Kaepernick. Like he took Colin Kaepernick to the big dance, man. There you go, Joe. Exactly. Harbaugh was successful at San Francisco. He just had some issues in the locker room. And, at that time, there was all that Kaepernick talk and there was a lot of things. And I think maybe, he had some issues with management, right? But he was very successful. So Kaepernick did a big dance, bro. Like, everybody forgets about that. Brian says, well, at least Mariota me. Yo, I'm not ashamed to say it, man. I was the all in. I was do the deal guy, man. I was like, yo, do the deal. Give me Marcus Mariota. I wanted Marcus. I did. I was a do the deal. I thought that marriage between him and Chip was going to be amazing. And I thought it was going to be unstoppable in the NFL. So I was like, yo, do the deal. Do the friggin' deal, man. Get me Marcus Mariota. But obviously it didn't happen. And listen, thankfully he didn't, right? Thankfully he didn't, because we see the unfortunately the effects of not being able to run a Chip Kelly style offense. Now, I will say this: if Chip came here and Mariota was here as a backup and he played, he would look 1,000 times better than he looks now under Sirianni. I'll be honest with you. I guarantee it. And don't think that the Eagles think about that just a little bit. Just throwing it out there, just a little bit. Now, Brian says, and if Chip does come here for OC, who does he push to QB1? Well, it's 100%. Listen, it's not about who he pushes. It's going to be Jalen Hurts no matter what, because Jalen Hurts is the franchise guy. Jalen Hurts is the guy they pay. They have to figure out if Jalen Hurts, if this is a bump in the road, or was this a side of Jalen Hurts that they didn't see? Was it masked by the wins? Was it something that they did not predict? And again, they did it with Carson. And this, again, I'm not calling Jalen Carson. What I'm saying is, in that scenario, they had to figure it out, right? They had to say, is it Carson? Is it the team? Is it Carson as the coach? So I think it's the same thing here for Jalen. And they have to figure it out. So it's always going to be Jalen, 100%. And here you go. See, another great comment by Javon from the college ranks. So Brian, just like Javon says right here, Javon says he would thrive in a Chip Kelly offense. Why? We saw what he did in Lincoln Riley's spread offense in Oklahoma, right? And we all know that Jalen Hurts doesn't like to be behind center, and Chip Kelly doesn't like a quarterback under center. So everything falls together here and aligns right? For Chip Kelly. And let's remember, he was able to get Josh Huff a job in the NFL as well, like Chip Kelly. So he's made some storybook players, bro. Like seriously, which again, like I said, he's not dumb. He just he may be stubborn, and he may not have the ability to change, with the way we want him to. But you can't take away that he's a brilliant offensive mind. And right now, I mean, listen, we're always talking about Frank Reich. We're always talking about Shane Steichen. We're always talking about these guys that we wish we had back. Okay, well, why don't we just take Chip Kelly back and call it a day? I'm telling you, I am all in on Chip Kelly experience as offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I'm curious, who would say no? Who would not give him a shot? I mean, listen, it's essentially a dead year for Sirianni, right? At the end of the day, it's a dead year for Sirianni and the Eagles. Because if this doesn't work, they're going to want to fire in Sirianni like in week 6. And then what? All of a sudden, now everything's going to come together under Ron Rivera and everything's going to be okay? No, that's the problem. Brian says, I feel as if Hurts would thrive and up. Of course, he has to have. Listen, the thing about Jalen is Jalen needs to get rid of the ball quick on those hot routes and those short reads, man. 100%. And I think that's why it definitely would work. Joseph, all this offense talk is depressing. The Eagles' routes were straight outside routes and nothing to the middle. Again, horrible coaching design hurting the standard. Exactly. The standard, meaning, yeah, again, the standard, it was so demoralizing. I've never been so bored watching Eagles games before in my life, which is sad to say. Sad to say, but extremely boring, man. Extremely boring. Brian says where he can pick the defense apart, you have the talent at wide receiver. Where we have the speed, make the defense second guess the pass and ran the ball down their throat with a Hurt Swift run. And we weren't doing that. We weren't doing that. And what was happening is we're throwing it on first down and it's incomplete. We're throwing it on second down and then we're going for like 2 yards. And now we're on third and long and we're getting a 0 blitz. Everything was wrong this year. Everything was wrong. So yeah, Brian, I agree. It's just, will they implement that? I don't know. So I am in for the Chip Kelly experience in Philadelphia. And if it's not in Philadelphia, I firmly believe that Chip will find a job back in the NFL, coaching once again as a offensive coordinator. I wouldn't doubt that possibly maybe he gets a role of maybe assistant head coach, possibly something like that. But at the same time, I just think that he's too smart and he's too brilliant, in my opinion, as an offensive guy, not to have a job. So again, I do expect Chip Kelly, and I hope the Eagles 100%. I hope the Eagles explore the possibility. And Brian says they should have run more formations and crossing routes. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And that's why coaching was bad more so than other players. And you're right. It goes back to that preparation. And that's what we agree with. What about Belichick combo in Atlanta? It's funny, man. I am shocked that he's going to Atlanta. I am. I'm really shocked. And now I'm curious to see who his quarterback's going to be. I'm curious. There's no way he's going there saying, I can make Desmond Ridder a player. Like, I just don't see it. I don't see it. Think about this real fast. Can you imagine if Brady came out of retirement? You imagine if Belichick sold the idea to Arthur Blank that, hey, listen, I talked to Tom. Tom's ready to come back, man. He wants to give this one more run. And we have we have Bijan, we have the really good defense that played, above expectations. We got Kyle Pitts, right? We got Drake London. We got the pieces, man. We got the pieces. And Tom says, I'm gonna come back. I mean, think about that. I still in the back of my mind think Brady comes back, man. I do. I don't know when. I just think he comes back, man. Like I don't think he was ready to go. There was a lot of stuff going on in his personal life, man. It really was. And you're right, Brian. Gronk did. Look how many times Favre changed his mind. Exactly. 100%. So I do think that that's a real possibility. I do. And I think that may be why it's happened. So, because think about the revenue that you're going to inject into that team right off the bat. Right off the bat. You're going to start getting all those primetime games. You're already going to get it with Bill, but yeah, more so with Tom. So it's definitely something very, very interesting to talk about. And you never know. Within the coming days, we'll see how much traction it gets. But on that note, we're going to recap, close this thing down for the night with another great HRS Late Nights. We're going on about an hour and 45 minutes. We open up talking about the fantastic record-breaking Joel Embiid 70-point game. Talking about, again, the way Nick Nurse has changed this team, the way Nick Nurse has got this team flowing on many different sides of the ball, whether it be offense or defense, where it's got the team really moving the ball around the offensive side, not staying stagnant. He's playing the young players. He's got a great culture going on. These dudes are having fun. So we talked about that. We talked about Tyrese Maxey, being able to be that other guy. Tobias Harris, continue to be that other guy, and maybe just stay put, get a couple role players on his team at the deadline, and just go for broke, because right now they're playing like the best team in the NBA. They really are. So we talked about that. We pivoted over to the Eagles, and we talked about head coaches. Obviously talked about Sirianni looking like he's going to stay around. The press conferences tomorrow, Wednesday. I don't know exactly what time. Talk about coordinators, who we like. I'm a big Ron Rivera guy from the defensive side, and I said it before. I'm going to continue to say I would take Chip Kelly from the offensive side. So I'm curious about what everybody thinks about that. And again, these coming days, waiting for that shoe to drop with Bill Belichick and possibly maybe Tom Brady coming out of retirement. You just never know what's going to happen with that Bill and Tom connection. You just never know. But on that note, like I always say, man, I appreciate everybody joining in and their support. We'll be back here tomorrow night. Like I said, like we always are. We'll be back here tomorrow night, 11 o'clock. We'll be getting into more news, which I'm sure there'll be some more news to talk about when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles and the Philadelphia 76ers, and maybe some Phillies news. Maybe Dombro signs somebody tomorrow. We don't know, but like I say right here on the show, as always, man, I appreciate the support. I appreciate everybody liking, subscribing to the show. We'll be back here tomorrow night. Everybody stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll catch you back here. HRS Late Night at 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night.